the help of the Almighty, I pray to the Almighty to bestow upon me His truth, His wisdom, that I may be worthy of conveying His message to this beautiful gathering, and in so doing, may we sanctify the name of the Almighty, and inshallah bring peace to the world. Assalamu alaikum. Unfortunately, we have reached the 66th year of this terrible Nakba, this terrible tragedy, this rebellion against the Almighty, flaunting a rebellion in the face of the Almighty, the ruler of the world. This state called the State of Israel, the Zionist State of Israel, a crime that has brought an endless river of bloodshed, has brought to peoples around the world, all around the world, suffering, pain, misery, and especially to my brethren in Palestine who have been uprooted from their homes, have been uprooted from their souls, from their existence. How many millions of people are affected emotionally? How many people that it seems that they aren't from the ones who are living in Palestine, but they are from the children, the grandchildren of the ones who lived in Palestine. How many of these people suffer? How many of these people that you don't see and I don't see are living in refugee camps? And how many lands that people don't even begin to know? How many refugee camps do you know exists for the people of Palestine? And how many years do they exist? How many children were born in these lands? We as a Jewish people, for us, it is more than one Nakba. It is a double, it is a triple Nakba. Why? Because we are humiliated, we are frustrated. What is happening to the people, our brethren, our sisters and brothers in Palestine, is happening to them in our name, and under the facade of a holiness by a people, an evil movement that has kidnapped and hijacked the holy name from the Torah, the Star of David, the name Israel, which is Jacob's name, my brethren's name, my parents and grandparents, my grandparents who were taken to Auschwitz and were murdered. Why? Because they were Jews. They died to sanctify God's name.
What about me?
And these people, they died because they were Jews, because they wanted to sanctify the Almighty with their lives, to emulate God as God requires. Mahu rachum afatu teirachum. Just as the Almighty is compassionate, you must be compassionate. In the Torah it says, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill. The Torah is replete with commandments of how we must be a light unto the nations, meaning that when we are dispersed amongst the nations, and ideally we are following the words of the Torah, we will be a holy nation. And as a holy nation, the Torah requires of us to be above and beyond what is required of any other human being, meaning, as the Torah states, you must show gratitude for everything done for you that is good. You must show to the world how a person is trying to mirror the Almighty, the all-compassionate, how they must act. That is what Judaism is. Judaism is a covenant that we made with the Almighty on Mount Sinai to uphold His Torah. What is Judaism? To be subservient to the Almighty, and that is it. What is Zionism? Zionism came along a mere 150 years ago, around 150 years ago, and tried to transform this subservience to God into a base nationalism, a material goal. all the fathers, almost in its entirety of this movement, were people who estranged themselves from God. They refused to accept this concept of being spiritual, of being subservient to God. What did they decide to do? They were being led and pushed by the Shaitan, by the Satan, because they could have just assimilated as the other Reformed Jews did, but they weren't happy with just assimilating and dropping their Judaism. They decided to grab this name Judaism and flaunt it, go around the world and tell people that they are the Judaism. What does it mean to be a Jew? It means to them to have a piece of land. They wave the Bible as a deed to a land. They claim that God gave them the rights to take this land from the Palestinian people. With a haughtiness, with an arrogance, they wave the words of the Torah and claim they have a right over the homes, over the lives of the people of Palestine. Is that true? Totally not. This works of Satan is the transformation from subservience to God, accepting the rule of God, into a base, evil concept, a selfish concept of saying it is mine, it is given to me, and I don't look at the rights of others who are there. I don't see their emotions, their feelings. And that is not our Torah. The Torah tells us we've been brought up, we've been teaching our children, and for this golden chain that we've had for over 3,000 years, our parents, grandparents, we've been always told that you must feel the hurt, feel the heart, feel the feelings of your fellow human being. You are not allowed to steal. And again, the Torah is full, it's replete, that how the Jews are required to show gratitude. Who were the nations when we went through the Crusades and the Inquisition, and even till the Second World War? Where was the safe haven for Jews? In Muslim and Arab lands, in Turkey, in Morocco and Tunisia and in Iran, and in Palestine. Under Muslim leaders, we had a way to be able to flourish. There was no United Nations, there was no human rights groups, and yet the Jewish communities flourished as religious Jewish communities practicing their distinctly different religion than the Muslim people, yet they were respected and protected. Anybody, if they would like to take the time and effort to go to Egypt, they can go to any of these Arab lands. This week in Tunisia, the Jews are practicing the custom of celebrating. What were they celebrating? A Jewish rabbi, a holy rabbi who lived there hundreds of years ago. Go to these communities. With God's help, we went to these communities. You will find synagogues from all the ages. You will find cemeteries from all the ages. And you'll see that there was a flourishing, beautiful communities. What happened to these communities? When did this change? All of this changed in the last less than 100 years. Why did it change? Not because there is a religious conflict, as the Zionists want to claim, with their sly, with their evil scheming. There was not a religious conflict. We have here rabbis who lived in Palestine. My colleague is 8th-generation Palestinian who's standing amongst you. His grandfather, his grandparents may have lived to 120. They attest to the fact that they lived in the old city of Jerusalem. They babysat each other's children. When the Jewish people had to go to the synagogues on Yom Kippur, who babysat their precious, the most precious object, their children, their Arab and the Muslim neighbors. And it was likewise the other way. They lived in harmonic coexistence with the distinct difference of religion. Why? If it is a religious conflict, pray tell why? For hundreds of years they coexisted. I'm not saying there was never any bumps in the road, but they coexisted and flourished. Why? All of a sudden, are the Zionists running around and claiming that the Muslims have an ingrained hate for Jews, that the Palestinians are not acceptable, they do not blend into society, they don't accept others. The answer is simple. Because they've gone away from the morals of the Almighty, they've lost their moral yardstick. They are serving a Satan called Zionism, a selfish concept of taking a land of a nationalism, and they're ready to sacrifice on this altar anybody and anything and everybody who stands in the way, whether it be Jew, whether it be Muslim, whether it be Christian. Besides, we feel it is just required of us to cry and to speak up, to cry out to the world of this terrible crime, what is being perpetrated against the people of Palestine. We must remember that Jewish people around the world, from day one, from when Zionism started, and especially when they decided to make their homeland in Palestine. Mind you, they really were looking just for a lush land. They wanted to go to Uganda and Patagonia. And they only changed it because they realized they needed vast and massive support from the nations. They decided to pick Palestine, and then they claimed, oh, this was godly given to us. But when they went to Palestine, who were the ones who opposed them from day one? The chief rabbi of Palestine, Rabbi Sonnenfeld of blessed memory. And then in 1947, we have in our documents, I have them here, anybody could go to our site at NKUSA, Rabbi Dushinsky of blessed memory in 1947 pleaded with the United Nations delegation in Palestine and said, these are interlopers, these people don't belong here, we don't want to be placed under them. And they were ignored. They said, we do not want a Jewish state. It's not a Jewish state, but we don't want the so-called Jewish state. And they stood and demonstrated, and they were assassinated in the 1920s. The first well-known martyr, a famous person, was a Dr. Dahan, a Jew, because he took the chief rabbi of Palestine to meet with the king of Transjordan to make sure that they could coexist in peace. So the Haganah, the Israeli, the Zionist terrorist movement, which later became their IDF, assassinated him. And that sad history continues till today. Again, you can go to our site, you can look at links, and you'll see Jewish people are being brutally murdered. Nobody accuses us of being militant, being armed, yet our people are assassinated, murdered, arrested. How many of my colleagues, even here, people who keep on coming out of the Holy Land, and they can find citizenship, they try to get citizenship, to get accepted in Canada, to get accepted in the United States. It's very hard, but they keep on trying. And why? Because they don't want to be under this evil occupation. The Torah forbids us to steal. Also, the Torah clearly states that the Jews are forbidden to have their own sovereignty, meaning that we as Jews, for 2,000 years, although we went through the Crusades and the Inquisition, we never attempted to make a state. We had sometimes called the Golden Age of Judaism, of very rich Jewish communities in Spain and Portugal. They never bought a piece of land. Why? Because they followed their rulers, the rabbis, who said the Torah forbids Jews since the destruction of the temple 2,000 years ago. As King Solomon told us in a prophecy, we are in exile by God. We are not to have 1 inch of Jewish sovereignty. That means that us as Jews would, even if the Palestinian people would accept a piece of land to give to the state of Israel, we as Jews will never accept it. We always celebrate with every piece of land that is returned to the Palestinian people. But where we always state that as long as there's 1 inch of this so-called Jewish sovereignty, this so-called Jewish state, we as Jews cannot accept this because this is a rebellion against God in every facet. In the issue of ignoring that it's God's world, and ignoring that God says you shall not kill and steal, in every facet it is a crime in its mere existence. And the fathers of these movements are heretics. They scorn Jews like us, they belittle us, they degrade us, they ridicule us and call us fanatics. Yet I invite anybody to go to Jerusalem, to Al-Quds, or to New York, where I am from. Right across from Manhattan is Williamsburg, the largest concentration of religious Jews besides Jerusalem. Find one Israeli flag there. You won't be able to, because the Jews who are true to their religion never will accept this occupation. Understand that. We never accepted it, and we never, with God's help, through all the intimidations and attacks, we will not accept this occupation. Not because we are not true Jews, but because we are Jews, we cannot accept this occupation. We come together in our synagogues every single year, every single week. We pray, we have certain prayers that God should bring with His compassion a speedy and total, and God help peaceful dismantlement of the state, that this endless river of blood should stop, because we know who, we are not condoning violence, but whose hands are bloody, who was the underlying cause, who is the root cause of this bloodshed. Is it because of religious conflict? Is it the Muslims? Is it the Palestinian people? No! History attests to people who are still alive that we live together. How could you refute that? What has the Satan done to the world that they have become blind, that they can't remember a history that is still alive? How many Jews amongst us are from Tunisia, Morocco, and Yemen? How many Jews are from Egypt? And how many of my Arab and Muslim friends come over to us constantly and talk about how they live together with their Jewish neighbors? Remember, the only reason that they are being successful in Zionism is because it's the works of Satan, and they have intimidated the world. But the truth is very, very clear. Don't be vilified. The victims, their mode of attack, the mode of the Zionist defense is to attack. They vilify the victims and scream anti-Semitism. They take the Holocaust and scream Holocaust. We are the children of Holocaust survivors. The majority of my family died in the Holocaust, but they died because they were Jews. And Zionism didn't come about because of that. Zionism came well before that. And to steal a land from another people is not a solution. To rebel against God and take a land from another people won't give you your freedom. It only incites God forbid the Almighty. Remember that. You want freedom? Serve God. You want freedom? Do good to the Palestinian people. Finally apologize. Give them their restitution. Give them their total freedom, their total name, Palestine. Give them the Holy Land. It is their right. It is their land. We as Jews have lived amongst them, and my words are not my words. These are the words of Rabbi Dushinsky of Gus Membry, the chief rabbis of Palestine, not the Zionist rabbinate, the Zionist chief rabbis, all this facade that they're making to intimidate others and to create a portrayal as if they represent God. No! That is just, as I said, a false. It is the wolf. It is the wolf in sheepskin who wants to have human rights activists stand aside because they're afraid to get involved between Jews and Muslims. But again, this is a facade, because the true Jewish communities, the hundreds of thousands of Jews in Jerusalem, in New York, in London. In fact, I was just on the telephone with my colleagues in London and in Jerusalem, where they are carrying out demonstrations as we are speaking here. All of these Jews say we are serving God, we are keeping the Sabbath, we are keeping the 10 Commandments, and because we're keeping the 10 Commandments, we gather together in our synagogue, and especially when they celebrate, the Zionists celebrate their occupation, we mourn, we fast, and we cry. We cry for the suffering of the people of Palestine. We cry for this rebellion against God, this rebellion that has driven a rift the size of the Grand Canyon between us and our brethren from the Arab and Muslim countries and from Palestine and from Lebanon. And our tears are heard by God. God is Almighty. And we know for certain with His compassion, He will bring an end to this occupation. There is no question about
Here.
The time is late. I moved time for other speakers. So again, there is so much to talk about. I hope I should be able to come and you help educate. We go to universities, we go to conferences, we go to the United Nations, because we want the world to understand that they should not be intimidated, that they should be standing up. And first we pray to the Almighty to bring a speedy and total removal of this impediment to peace. God help peacefully. But secondly, not to shy away from standing up and crying out to the world that the people in Gaza are in prison, the people in Palestine are in prison. We went to Gaza. Let me tell you, we went there a year and 2 years after they went, and they made that second Nakba, or third or fourth, whatever it is, these last 3 years, when they went into Gaza and murdered these people, the hundreds and thousands of people now. We went there, and the world wasn't up in arms about what the terrible tragedy happened, and it wasn't in the middle of some wilderness. It wasn't the screens. Everybody was able to see it. So we went. There was a family right next to the borders, a Samoni family, like almost around 30 people who were murdered. We went to visit them in the hospitals in Brussels. Then we went up to Gaza. And this family, everybody recognized that what a terrible Nakba this was. So you'd think a year after they were murdered and the houses were destroyed, that the remnants of this family would have been given some type of abode, a house, a little respect, food and water. We went there, we took pictures. They were living in what you would call tents, a screen with a piece of plastic, with brackets, no water, and this is how they were living, the remnants of this family. And this is just an example of all the others. Oh, there's not a house that doesn't have a relative, a brother or sister. Let me ask you, if a brother or sister is murdered, we're not condoning violence, but does that build to coexistence, or does that breed hate? What are the Zionists doing to us? They are the biggest, they are the greatest factory of exacerbating anti-Semitism. They cause anti-Semitism around the world. By equating Judaism and Zionism, they are creating the greatest danger for the Jews around the world, and they want that. So then the Jews, they say, run up. So Sharon goes to France and says, run up. But all Jews should leave France and go up to Palestine and support us. And he became a persona non grata, if you remember that. Zionism has a win-win situation. They're the only ones who benefit from the Holocaust. They benefit from Jewish suffering. But do they truly benefit? No. It brings tears, it brings suffering for the world, and it's a tragedy, it is a Nakba. Again, let us stand up, don't be intimidated. You're not anti-Semitic when you speak up for Palestine. Come to our site, NKUSA. Invite us, our speakers. We'll show you how all the rabbis spoke up from day one against Zionism, that it's not acceptable, the occupation. You'll see that it has nothing to do with anti-Semitism. Don't be afraid, stand up and help your brethren in Palestine and pray. And ultimately, we will see with God's help, with His compassion, the day of free Palestine, of free Palestine, of free Palestine, so we can once again embrace our brethren and show our gratitude that is required of us as Jews for our brethren of Palestine, and we will be able to live as loyal citizens in this free Palestine. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.